Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Yeah. Waiting for change to come, oh yeah. Knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Yeah. Yes, God, yes, so good. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me, yeah. Ooh, yeah. I know the night won't last. Yeah. Your word will come to pass. Yeah. But my heart will sing your praise again. Yeah, yeah. Jesus, you're still enough. Yeah. Just keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Oh, your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. You never fail me.
Blood cries out from the ground, but your blood cries out for mercy. I will have faith in your love. I put my trust in your blood. Oh, what a system. You require blood to clear our names. Oh, how your precious blood was spilled so we could come before you without shame. So I will have faith in your love. I put my trust in your blood. The blood that drips down, Lord, let it shower. The blood that protects, it'll never lose its power. The blood that drips down and cleanses my soul. Oh, the blood that stains me white as snow. The blood that stains me white as snow.
From the beginning, you were pointing to your precious son. And oh, what a sacrifice that was made, that we can be accepted as your own. Now I will have faith in your love. I put my trust in your blood. Na, na, na.
Blood that streams down, Lord, let it shower. The blood that protects, it'll never lose its power. The blood that drips down and cleanses my soul. Oh, the blood that stains me white as snow. I'm grateful for the blood that streams down. Lord, let it shower. The blood that protects.
Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Hope all is going well with you guys. I see there's a few of you guys on here, more are going to come hopefully. It's good to see you, Allie. Aaron, of course, is on this feed. I wanted to mention a few things as we get started, and then tonight we're gonna do a little different. We're gonna have a number of our, not all of our staff could make it, but a number of our staff come on, and we're just gonna talk about some of the things that for the church we could learn from this crisis, and just have a really good dialogue about how God is working and maybe what God is saying to us as a body through this crisis. And so we're going to talk as a staff and kind of see where we've been at, and hopefully it'll be a blessing to you guys. I love hearing stories of how God is working through you guys, and I encourage you, on maybe the community board, or maybe you want to send an email to me to just share a God moment. It's such a powerful thing when we share our testimony, our story. So I encourage you guys to send me or post on our community board ways that God has been working during this unusual time. And so, and share that with the body. Also, I just want to invite you guys to our Good Friday service. It's going to come up on this Friday, of course, Good Friday, 7 p.m. It's going to be a really special time. It's going to be just a shortened service, but it's a really important time as we kind of gather and we remember and commemorate Jesus' death on the cross, as he took that what is the biggest moment in history for us, and took our sin, took our guilt, took our shame on himself. And so invite you guys. That's a public event for anybody. You can invite some of your coworkers or friends to that, and would love to see you there. All right, so let's get right into it. And y'all bear with me, still working on this technology. There, I'm unmuted. Hey, Sarah. Still can't hear me. Oh, there I am. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Good. Cool. Well,
Hey.
thanks for leading this. I'm just going to introduce, why am I introducing? Not introducing. You guys know Sarah. You know each other. But Sarah really takes the lead with our ladies, and has been a huge support in our staff as a volunteer, and really appreciate you and what you've done in our church. And so Sarah's going to help lead this conversation. Of course, you guys know Kyla Wren. This is Kyla Wren. He is. I don't know if you guys knew that we actually hired Kyla Wren. And so if we have any issues, any problems that you have with us, please see Kyla Wren. It's very appropriate. Justin, what's up, man? Unmute. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. How are y'all?
We are good. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for sweating
be here.
outside in this heat, but to represent the new hoodies.
Feels good right now.
So, of course, you guys know Justin. He's our, what do we call you? Our
He's the
everything
direct
pastor.
unnamed pastor.
And an elder.
all of the above pastor. And
Yeah,
then
directional.
directional pastor. And then I'm going to add in Caleb. Caleb, what's up, man? You there? Good job. Caleb's our
You hear me? Hello.
worship pastor. Yep, we hear you. And then Erin is joining us. Hey, Erin.
Hi.
And she, even though she's kind of off now because we're not having services, and but she's our volunteer everything, and really appreciate all the work you've done these last
Definitely.
2 years or a year, 2 years,
It would be 2 years in August.
2 years in August. Okay, you have been such a blessing, organizing our volunteers and recruiting more. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And thank you.
I feel like
all.
I'm not being super useful right now, but
Yeah. Well, it is what it is.
Did we say what Caleb did, or are we just leaving that?
Yeah. What do you do, Caleb?
Oh, who knows? Who knows? A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
All right. Well, Sarah, you got some questions for us. We're going to talk about today, so I'm going to pass it on to you.
Okay. Yeah, I got some questions. Just looking at our feed over here, the comments coming in, Annetta and Braz and Bryce and Samantha. Hey, guys. We have our staff on tonight. So glad you guys are joining us via Skype, and glad everyone on the other side of YouTube is there. So if you guys, I'm going to be asking some questions. There's about a 10-second delay for those of you who are watching through YouTube. But if you guys have any questions or follow-up questions you want us to ask the staff, or any comments you want to make, we're going to try and track those. I was noticing last week I went back and read the comments, and after I asked Ollie the gratitude question, it was muted, and I totally didn't see everybody was commenting. So they decided just to have a conversation amongst themselves and figure out what you're saying. It's kind of like a Mystery Science Theater 3000. So if we have any technical gaffes and you guys want to just make up the conversations, please feel free, because it's very entertaining when you go back and read it afterwards.
Yeah, I'm glad that part was muted. I made a offhand remark about Alexa.
Well, I prompted it, so my bad. Okay, so getting into our questions. Let's start with this. Some of us have been forced to slow down and take a Sabbath, as it was worded. Some of us who are like, if you're working in one of these essential jobs, or if you're in healthcare especially, and you might have had to speed up. You're still having to do your normal job, or you're working from home and you've had to learn new technology. Some of us might feel even busier. Some of us might be spinning our wheels and feeling really slow. So I'm going to start with Aaron, just because you're in the upper left of my screen. And Aaron, will you tell us if you are one of the people who's had to slow down or speed up? And then in that, what is God revealing to you in that process?
So I'm one of the essential workers because I work in a small family practice. I work as a clinical research coordinator. So I'm manage clinical trials and things like that. But it's kind of a little bit of both, because I'm still having to get up and go to work every day and all that. But when I get to work, it's a lot slower than normal, just because everything that I normally do has been put on pause. And so I'm having to help out in a lot of different departments. God's really just taught me a lot about, I guess, just trying to find ways to be helpful when I'm not quite sure how to be helpful. I want God to give me an outlet that I can help without endangering other people by interacting with them. Because I'm trying to help around the clinic as much as I can, but I also don't want to get in contact with the patients if I don't have to be, and things like that. I don't know. It's just really, I guess he's just kind of teaching me to just slow down a little bit and just kind of be content if I can't, because I like to do a lot. I like to help people. I like to do everything I possibly can, and jump in when I can. And but I really can't do that as much as possible right now, just because it would put people in jeopardy that doesn't need to be.
Yeah. Yeah, so you would say God's teaching you, kind of having to make you step back and not necessarily maybe take a minute to try and think through, okay, what does being helpful look like in this new season when it's not as maybe hands-on as. Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. All right, Justin, we're coming to you next. Are you in the camp that has things sped up or slowed down, or maybe they haven't changed, and what's God revealing to you through it?
Yeah, I'm definitely in the camp of things have sped up in almost every aspect of my life. And I feel like one of the things that God's teaching me, I think there's two things, but one, I heard a decent sermon this past Sunday from Ruth chapter 2, where Ruth displays humble confidence. And I was just thinking, as a leader, so many people are asking questions, whether it's at the restaurant or in the church or in my home. But you get bombarded with these questions centered around what's going to happen, what are we going to do? And as a leader, you've got to have confidence. You can't just say, I have no idea, run for the hills. But you also can't predict the future. And so trying to anchor decision-making, anchor the words I use, the things I say in that humble confidence. I know I'm not in charge, but I know who is. And I know I can't do all things for my own good, but I know who can, things like that. That's been really important. And then a long time ago, I read, I forget who it was, but someone said they started every single day with a historical truth, something that has been true for a really long time and has not been proven wrong. And I always, as a believer, thought of Scripture, of course. And I've done really well lately with starting my day using the CBR journal reading plan and the book of Kings, Second Kings, and just how much of a wreck that scene was in that book. And even preaching Judges and Ruth recently, like, and just thinking like, man, God has been here before. He's been in the midst of uncertainty, been in the midst of people being separated and even exiled, and it's just new to us. And so I think that he's just reminding us of his faithfulness. So, yeah.
That's a good word. I was having similar thoughts. I'm still keeping up with my CBR journal too. So if anybody else who started that with us back in the day, that was over a year ago, wasn't it? If you're doing that, I think we should maybe talk about getting some small groups going with the CBR journals again. But that's off topic. Let's come to Caleb next. Caleb, are you in the sped up or slow down group, and what's God revealing to you?
Sure. I'm probably somewhere in between. So I don't know if everyone knows this, but I own a marketing and design business. That is my week-to-week job. And so as well as my wife both teaches and does homeschooling as well. And so we have been home for the last 2.5 years already, kind of weirdly preparing for this. I think for us though, it's been a challenge in ways because when you work from home, you get into these rhythms of seeing people and you're very intentional about it. And now we're not getting that as well, and so that's been really hard for us. But I mean, I think God has been teaching our family just that, and this is this is more personal for us. It's just that, I think there's still, we tend to overwork our problems, if that makes sense. And so we replace going to the Lord and going to our scripture, going towards our trust in him. We might talk about it a lot, but the reality of our hearts and our minds often goes to, let's fill it with busyness. And so just kind of watching that, and what's interesting is when you have those natural breaks of community, of just going to the grocery store, you can kind of shut things down, and so kind of distance yourself. But when you don't have that, it's really hard to know when to stop working at all, and right. So we're starting to see that kind of wear on us, and as God continues to work in our family and teach us things, we're just kind of just being patient in that. But I think he's also showing that he's faithful in spite of things. I mean, there's definitely some fear for. Oh, there's my daughter. Hello. Definitely some fear initially as we weren't really sure what, am I essential? That word essential worker is just kind of a scary word. And for us to go, is this, are we essential? Is this something, I know I've worked for myself, but, should we be cut? So just trusting in the Lord that he has provided and will provide for our family. I think he's said more things about the church as a whole, and I think we'll talk about that later. But but for us personally, we're just kind of resting in that. So yeah.
I relate to this idea of not kind of having these built-in rhythms. We'll talk about rhythms later too, and see if you guys have some suggestions for everyone on that. Let's move on to Ollie next. Ollie, are you in the slow down or sped up camp, and what is God revealing to you?
Yeah, well, at the first, I was kind of more sped up. I was trying to figure out how can we gather as a church, and that was a lot of stress for me personally. And for about 2 or 3 weeks, it was a lot of stuff still going on, still having some meetings, but now it's all remotely. But in a lot of ways, it has slowed down for us. It is, I say slow down, it has changed. Kids are at home now, so we're having a lot more time together, which has been, just amazing for us. It's just really revealed, like if I think about this question personally, it's just really revealed some things that we have been doing wrong as a family. And I think coupled with, a lot of overwork at school too. And so
Yeah.
like now that they're at home doing school, we've had more evenings together that has been really good. And we walk almost every single day, which has been a big change for us. We've seen neighbors for the first time, like in so long. Like people are outside, everybody's at home, which is, well, most everybody
Yeah.
are at home, and it's just been really great for our family. Benjamin is like, he's living my life when I was in the 80s. Like he goes outside and plays without a suit. I was nervous at the beginning, but then he's riding his bike down the street to play with some friends. The Moonies, they attended our church, and so they live in our neighborhood. And so Benjamin has been over there every day playing, and they'll come over and play. So that's just been really, I mean, honestly, just really good. And then for me personally, like spiritually, it's helped me. I've been able to really focus more on my own spiritual health than thinking about the church, which actually they go together, you know. And so that's been life-giving to me.
Yeah, good. Well, Ollie, stay on with me. I'm going to start this next question with you, and then Justin, Caleb, and Aaron, if you guys would also like to answer, I'll make it optional. The next question is, since this pandemic has affected the church's ability to gather corporately, what do you think God is saying to his church? What are some positive things for the local church?
I'll keep my answer short as much as I can, but I think I certainly I'm one to kind of always try to see meaning in things, and there's a lot of truth to that because God is sovereign. He allows things to happen, but these things happen all the time. And so I was reminded in an article that in 2004, 200,000 people, I think in Indonesia, died in, I think it's Indonesia, I might be getting that wrong, but in a tsunami. And a whole church was swallowed up in that. And so this is not something that is odd or weird or like it's not a part of human history. So God has always been on his throne despite that. However, it has made me think that obviously we all believe that God is sovereign over everything, in that even the things that we think are random things like pandemics just happen, God is sovereignly using that. I can't get away from that idea that God is sovereignly using this in the life of his church. And for me, I mean, what it's done for American Christianity, it has taken away our ability to have a performance. And I'm not trying to say that that's what we do every Sunday. I'm just saying that it's kind of simplified our church, and church meaning like the universal church. The service has not been as big of a deal, which has been awesome. And so for me, I think God has, you know, I'll be careful saying this because I'm not trying to be prophetic, but I'm just saying I feel like God in his sovereignty is working through this pandemic to empty the church of just its corporate gathering and spreading us outward. And so I've just seen the church present on the streets more than I ever have, you know. Just even the Christians in my neighborhood, I've seen them on the streets. We've talked, we've hung out together. We've, you know, been able to interact with other people in our community who aren't necessarily Christian. So it's been really good for the church.
So you said there's some relationship building happening as a result that might not have happened otherwise.
And it's challenged our overemphasis on an event.
Yeah. Well, and I want to take a minute, and Caleb, if you'll actually talk next on this, because I know I've seen behind the scenes how much work has gone into getting an online service up and running and doing some pre-recording of things and making plans. And I know kind of the effort that's going into Easter service. Because I just want to take a minute and thank you and Ollie and Angela and Abigail for, I mean, you guys really scrambled to get stuff together, and you've done an excellent job with, one, figuring out the technology and making it happen. I know it's not super smooth, but I hope the church would agree with me. So if you're on the other side of YouTube, please do make a comment and just thank them for it. They've put a lot of effort and time into getting these things up and running. I saw actually one of my friends is a pastor's wife up in the northern part of America. I can't remember where they are now, but she was saying how asking people to just be kind, because pastors weren't necessarily trained in all these technologies, and to be patient. So you're getting, Justin says thanks. So Caleb, in light of that, like, the production's gone. It has the original question, how's it affected the church's, since it has affected the church's ability to gather corporately, what do you think God is saying to his church? What are some positive things? But then, it's not the production, but still a lot of efforts going into making Sundays happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
So you were asking for the positive things. I mean, I definitely am thinking a little bit about the Amos 5. I tire of your assemblies, but let justice roll down. I mean, that I very much paraphrase that, but I don't think that God hates our assemblies. I don't think that that's what he's saying at all. But I think that there is a need for us to focus our hearts. Golly said a little bit about this. Focus our hearts, mind back towards the things that make us uniquely Christian. A lot of the stuff that we do on a weekly basis, and I'm totally guilty of this, but are very American mindset type of Christianity. It's not something that we've inherited from any even ancient traditions. It's just something that we've seen done, and we liked it, and we've taken it on. And I think God still blesses that, because, like Ali said, he's sovereign. I think that we are intentional and thoughtful and mindful and prayerful about every single thing we do. Right. But we're human, and so it's really nice for God to just this is a weird analogy, but kind of shuck the corn on this and just say, look, like, let me get back to the real fruit of what we're trying to do here. And so, yeah, I think for me, it's been really interesting to get back to, how is leading, how is these songs, how is this stuff, how is this being a pastoral thing, how is this affecting our hearts and our day-to-day walks, how is this discipling our children, which is something I'm trying to think about on a weekly basis. But there's just so many things, and most of y'all, if you haven't been in professional ministry, if whatever that is, you don't know that there's stuff like buildings and money and just stupid stuff like, hey, the projector's not working. Can we spend 2 days fixing, just stuff that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it just adds up, And so for the fact for us to just pause and focus on who God is, man, what a gift that is. I'm hoping we're not missing that. That's a crucial thing. And so for me, what a cool thing that not only can you watch these live with us every Sunday, but you can go back and watch it with yourself, with your family, hopefully. Go back, worship songs throughout the week. Write down songs that you listen to. Spend time singing these songs and reading these scriptures aloud with your family, and teaching, each of our hearts to do that, And so I also want to applaud Ali and Angela. I think the two of them, I've gotten some unneeded credit, I think, for some hard work that Ali and Angela have put into making sure that the technology works, and we're still figuring it out. But what a cool thing! I've seen a lot of churches go really hard on the production value to try to kind of mimic what happens on Sunday, and we have intentionally not done that. And one, because of resources, there's some, but I think two, also because we want this to be something new and unique. God is trying to do something new and unique through this time. So let's not miss that, and let's not, we're already devoid of community. So how can we make this foster and continue and thrive the community that we already have, and grow in that? And so that's a lot of what we're trying to think through with all of that. So I'm trying, I hope all of y'all are trying to see what God is trying to say to the church as a whole,
Yeah.
And we may never get a full answer. It may just be a small little pieces over the rest of our lives, if that, So, but he is trying to do something, and that's a cool thing. So,
Cool. Thank you. All right, Justin and Aaron, would either of you like to weigh in on that? Since we're not able to gather corporately, what do you think God is saying to his church, and what are some of the positive things coming out of it? And you can just shake your head if you don't want to add anything.
Well, I'm going to take kind of separate separately because they've talked so positively, and I do think a lot of positivities, coming out of this. I mean, there is a reality of negativity in that, like what a virus represents, and how scary it has been. You don't know if you have it, you don't know if you're passing it, you don't know if it's how symptomatic it's going to be if you do get it.
Right.
And I think it's a really good analogy to what sin is. I mean, sin is past, it affects so much, and it's not always visible. And I think a lot of the way that we can turn sickness and death and sadness, at least a little bit, into God's glory. I mean, one day it'll all be for God's glory, and it is now, but we'll realize it, is to liken it to what sin does in the world. And I mean, we hate the COVID-19 virus, and we should hate sin in the same ways and for the same reasons. I mean, it stops everything, it halts everything, it ruins people's lives, and it's really, really dangerous physically. So, but I do, again, not to twist your question, I think there's a lot of positive stuff that's coming from it, like that's already been said. So,
yeah. No, all things for the good. I think that's a good addition. Aaron, did you want to add anything?
Oh, I was just going to agree with kind of all of them. Just how it's, I think, teaching us that being in a building you don't need all the flash to feel God's presence. You don't need all the flashiness, production of anything. You just have a simple, a very simple service and still feel God move in it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, we've had some. Go ahead.
That anything that doesn't look that goes wrong, it's all intentional. Everything is intentional, just for that
Of
effect.
course.
I just want to be clear with that. Every misspoken word.
To your point, I think it's important that we train people to remember that we are not perfect. Like we just want to make sure that we bust all those illusions from the get-go so that they don't put anybody up on a pedestal. Brothers and sisters in Christ here, right? We're all dependent on him. So I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah, it's hard work.
Excellent.
It's hard work,
It is.
So.
It is hard work to not be perfect. It's hard work. We've gotten some good comments. Brittany said, thank you everyone who's behind the scenes on the computer. Didn't realize how much work it took until this past Sunday. Thanks, Brittany. Adam Sheely sends you 100 flamin', and some other emoji that my eyes are getting too old to see. Brad says, the way Mosaic leadership put together a remote service on the fly and continues to provide for and serve the congregation is extremely impressive. Very well done. Annetta says, thank you for all your hard work and commitment. David Brown agreed. It's been a great transition. Love that the gospel and community is at the center and not all about a flashy production. So thanks for those comments, guys. I know that's got to be really encouraging to the leadership. They want to serve you well, and they're very prayerful about it. So your encouragement is wonderful.
Just wanted to point out, they're not on the video, but I wanted to give a shout out to Brad because he delivered our Mosaic pullover today to our house.
All right.
I was at work, so I was really sad that Clinton got to see Brad, but I didn't. I was like, darn. I miss people.
I know, getting to see church faces in the flesh is just what a blessing that is, right? To value that. That's one of, I think, the kind of silver linings to come out of it is just remembering how much we love church family. And when you don't get to see them, and then, you get moments like that. So I'm sorry that you missed it, Aaron. Maybe you can order another shirt. Maybe you'll get another chance.
That's what I'll do.
Okay, so let's come out. So what about the church's response? Seeing things all over Facebook. Some people are saying, be more cautious. And you can have faith and still, stay at home. And then some are saying, have more faith, take risks to serve the community. Let's start with Justin. Justin, what do you say to that? How can the church serve?
Well, I'd like to thank you, first of all, for coming to me first.
You're so welcome. If you want a minute, we can come back to you.
No, I can't remember the actual verse, but I know it says that God has apportioned faith to each person. And I think this is a time where you definitely want to obey the law. You definitely want to take human life very seriously. But I mean, human life in God's mission has always been threatened as well. And I think each of us have to make our own personal and family decisions, and it's not easy. Even the question of what's essential is really hard, and it's not been answered for us really accurately because it probably can't be. And so we just have to be smart, make good decisions, and be good stewards of life, because that's what God's given us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Aaron, it made me think about you working in healthcare, this question. What do you think? Kind of, as you kind of mentioned that something God's teaching you is to, like, how do you serve and still maintain kind of the boundaries that are being recommended? What do you have any other thoughts you want to add to that?
I haven't figured it out. I've been very cautious. I haven't been around my parents. I've seen my sister a couple times, but I'm usually always 6 feet from her. It's tough. I really don't know, other than just trying to reach out and help, wherever I can. If someone needs groceries picked up, I'll go pick them up, something like that. I don't know. But yeah, it's very difficult to try to find that balance of where you want to serve, but you don't want to hurt anyone either.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think, I wonder if one of the things God's teaching us through this is to find value in the mundane and the little things. I think a lot of times we think that serving the Lord has to be big. I know I did. When I first became a Christian, I was going to become a missionary because somebody preached on Isaiah 6 and it was who will go for me? And he was like, I'll go. And I was like, I'll go. And in my mind, that's what serving the Lord looked like. It was big and huge and going overseas. And what God's been teaching me over the years, and maybe he's doing that a little bit here, is it's right where you are. It's in the little things. We have to kind of get out of pride, I think, a little bit, and feeling like we have to be someone's savior sometime. I know I'm so tempted. It's I think so highly of the nurses and doctors because we value them right now. And I'm I want to be that person, but that's a little bit pride too, for me, Ali, what do you think? What about the church's response? How can the church serve having faith, but also being cautious? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, I've really struggled with the question because I kind of go back and forth. I mean, if anybody in the world should be bold, it should be Christians, because our eternity is secure. And so there's a certain type of confidence and risk that we take because we know this world is not our home. Now, and that part of that I've struggled with it because we've been very cautious as a Christian community all over the country. And part of that is because we want to protect people from getting it. And so there's a lot of wisdom to that. But then there is a way in which it can also be an excuse for us not to be risky or to step out and serve people. And I've also been afraid of that for myself and for our church community. And so I kind of go back and forth. I read a great article about the early church because I want to know how Christians in the past have dealt with pandemics. And some of the earliest writings have been about the early church during the Roman Empire when they had plagues. And one of the distinctives was Christians were the ones that risked everything and took care of the sick. And it really made the gospel spread. And a lot of them died because they did that. And so I'm not advocating just foolish, risky behavior, but I've really struggled with it. I've asked, here the outbreak hasn't been great, but you just hear stories of people who are dying somewhat alone, or I don't know, in the medical profession, do they have Christians who are just there to pray with people, to hold their hand during their last moments? And again, I mean, there's been tragedy way beyond this, and so I'm not sensationalizing it, but I struggle with it. I just want to. It's kind of like what Justin was saying. You want to be consistent with the faith that you do have, but also not as an excuse either to do nothing. And I think that's also a risk for the church too during this time because of the lockdown. We're also getting used to not being together. You're getting used to kind of being apart, and so there's a lot of risk of us being like further disengaged in liking it. And so I just kind of go back and forth. I really don't know if I've answered it at all, but I've struggled like how does Mosaic, how do we rally our church together to do something to serve during this time? Part of that is there's really what can we do right now where we won't get in the way? And that's like Aaron, you probably have more insight than any of us here as to the medical community, because they're bearing the brunt of all that. But you know, how can we help? How can we serve beyond just being present in our community? Can we invite people to our home for worship? That's been a question I've asked. You know, there are some people in our community that don't have access to the technology, and so like, can we invite people? And there's a lot of debate. Caleb says no, and so I've struggled with that. So I've tried my best to get people connected.
Right.
And we've been successful in some ways in that. And so, yeah. It's not an easy answer.
Well, no, it's not. Caleb, what would you weigh in saying?
So Ollie and I disagree a little bit on that. That's okay. Ollie's views on social distancing are very, based on this conversation alone, are very clearly different. But that's okay. I think that there is a couple things. I think that I totally agree with him that there's some wisdom in making sure that part of the way we're serving the community is by protecting the community, and so helping them not get sick, is a big deal right now. And thankfully, I think it's a little bit easier to do that now than it was kind of earlier on, because more and more precautions are being put in place than there were initially. Like, for instance, I had to pick up some light bulbs at Home Depot today, and I waited in line for 20 or 30 minutes because they were only letting in like a couple people at a time into the store. And so that kind of stuff is really going to help, and so it's great. I would say this is a weird one, but I work a lot with small businesses, and I think the church often is some of the worst people to deal with local businesses. I don't know why that is. Maybe I shouldn't have said it that way. I'm sure that's not true for everyone, of course. But restaurants are struggling right now. Go get some food. Go you skip one meal this week and go support a local restaurants, because a lot of them are not going to make it. That's just the truth of what I'm hearing from a lot of people in the restaurant industry right now. They're just not going to make it. And so if we can help them out and bless his family. I had a guy this week, I'm one of the businesses that I work with, ordered some T-shirts, and I went and called this local printer and said, hey, we're trying to find someone who's selling T-shirts, right? Like, we want to do it. And he almost started crying. He said, no, my business is completely dried up right now. No one's doing anything. Thank you so much for this business. And it hadn't occurred to me. I was just doing my job. So that really wasn't me being a servant as much as it was just an awareness of the need for the church. Like, I'm not saying don't tithe to Mosaic, but maybe think, can I go above and beyond this month by helping some people in the industry, So I think there's a lot of little ways to serve and to protect. I also think, though, the question is a little bit about service, but also just the heart of God. And I think that for those of us who are bent towards serving, and you mentioned this a minute ago, like, we're constantly have to battle, is this really what the Lord wants me to do, or is this my pride and my, like, I want to do this because it makes me look good, kind of thing. This is a cool season to fast from that, weirdly enough, and I think about the fact that we've been forced into not doing something and saying, I need service that really is forward and helping people who really need it, and not just because it's around me and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I have to, and it's the thing. And so, and that's a good thing too. I mean, for those of you who don't serve at all, maybe this is the time to pick that up. And for those of you who are obsessed with service over just being still and knowing the Lord, maybe you need to drop service for a little while and enjoy that, and that's okay too. So those are my thoughts.
Those are good thoughts. I know at one point, I think you shared a couple of restaurants that you worked with. And so I like the idea of, if you guys, our church, if you hear about companies that are local that are struggling, put it on our Facebook community board, put it in these comments here, so that we can be the church who supports and loves on its community that way. I think that would be a really good thing. Moving into what's Holy Week. We're getting ready for Easter. So remembering the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, I could think we can all safely say that we have never experienced an Easter like this. This will be completely foreign and new. Justin, I'm going to start with you again since you had a little time. What does this pandemic experience, does it give you a new perspective on Holy Week at all?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is, I've been preparing Easter Sundays for other people for a long time. And this is the first that I can remember that I'll be preparing just for my family. Like I'm my own family's pastor. And Brittany's, my co-pastor for sure. And, but just the reality of like, if I can't rely on Ali this year, I know he's going to do great virtually, no doubt, but, in the end, like I've got to make sure my kids get it. As far as the whole week's concerned, I think I've really liked Good Friday services. I think, the ones that we've always done have been really good. And I just love the annual reminder of what the cross is and the heaviness behind it, and then adding the scenery to it. And so I will miss that. And I think we'll do a fine job virtually. But I'll miss that even more than I'd probably miss what Easter Sundays felt like, but that's just personally. So,
yeah. Do you guys have anything particular planned for your family that's different or unique?
Not yet. Like I said, it's been crazy for us as a family, just time wise. But I know my wife's working on a lot of stuff, and hopefully she'll carry some weight. I know she will. But not yet.
I'm sure she will. Well, as you guys come up with things that you're going to do with your family, please share that with us, because I think we could maybe use some inspiration. Aaron, what about you? Holy Week, how is this new season of life that's experienced? How do you think it's going to change your perspective on Holy Week? Or
it's definitely different to say the least. Normally my family does, dinner together and all of that, and that's not happening this year. It'll just be me and Clinton, and then possibly my sister. I don't know. She might come over here. But yeah, just trying to keep my parents safe. So we won't be going over there or anything. So yeah, it's gonna be a little sad, a little bit, just because I won't be with my parents and all that, because I haven't seen them in a while. So it's definitely a little more of a somber Easter than last year, because normally Easter's a happy time in my house, but not so much this year. It's gonna be a little different.
Yeah. I think a lot of us can relate to that, probably. Ali, what about you? Perspective on Holy Week. Is the pandemic changed the perspective on Holy Week, or how is the Holy Week experience kind of changing our expectations of, I don't know, that was a twist of words, but you know what I'm trying to ask.
No, it's good. I think, if I'm honest, there's a little bit of, I feel a little like that it will really reveal within us the seriousness of our faith, that we're not depending, Easter is the bigness of Easter isn't dependent on other people now. Like Justin said, it's not going to be we're going to an experience, but it's now like, does this mean anything to you? Because if it does, then it's going to be present in your home. So I think that part, it kind of excites me. It feels like I feel more camaraderie, and I want to be careful with this because people have said be careful with it, but I feel more like this, that we're locked in, like there's a reason why we can't gather as a community. And so while the persecuted church is totally different than what we're experiencing, I feel like there's a little bit of that experience. And so for them, surely there's not a big production, there's not a big service. They're meeting in any way they can. Maybe it's just with their family, but it means something to them because it's in their heart. It's not about the external. So I think God has taken away some of the things that Easter has become, the Easter eggs, the dressing up, the other stuff, and some of the things I like those things too. And he's taking that away to get to the essence of what it really is, as if it's a winnowing kind of or sifting kind of way. Easter will be special based on your own appreciation of what Jesus has done in his resurrection. And so it's not like this like amazing experience and you get like a high. It's like Jesus rose from the grave. And if it's real to you, Easter will be just as big as it ever was. And so I'm excited for that for us as a community. And it gives us the excuse, to me personally, I don't know if this is too much information, but I feel I have to stay away from social media so I don't compare our church with other churches and what other people are doing. There's a lot of creativity. The American church is great about that. But at the same time, I feel like that pressure is off in a lot of ways, and we can get to the essence of what it means to follow Christ in the essence of Easter. And so that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, I like that.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Caleb, what about you? Holy Week and how this pandemic experience has given you a new perspective, maybe?
Sure. So my entire life, because my dad is a music pastor, we have planned Easter services, and we have planned spring musicals, and we have gone to Good Friday services, and then I've done worship leading for the last, however many years, and so, likewise. And so while I'm still planning some stuff, of course, digitally, like you said, and in some ways that's more stressful. In a lot of ways, it's less stressful. Right. It's a weird. It's a whole new thing. It's new, and I love what Justin said about that. Like it's just we're having to provide that for our kids, in a real way, and I'm grateful for that because this is, I definitely felt the fact that my dad, for instance, this is not me, like confession time, but my dad, for instance, was never really able to do like the kind of Eastery things with us because he was so busy during this time as a pastor at a major church. And so this is a chance hopefully for me to do that with my family. One of the things I'd love to take credit for it, but it's fully my wife. I think she read it somewhere else, but we've done it every year, and I'm really excited to do it this year. But I know not everybody in our church and stuff does like Easter baskets for various reasons and stuff like that. We still do. We're big celebrators of that, and I think you can still use those tools to point people to point your children to the gospel. And so so for us, we do a tradition. It's not like any kind of ancient tradition, but we go and collect rocks on Good Friday and put them in a basket, put them in our Easter baskets, and cover them with a red cloth. And the rock, we talk about just our sins and the weight of our sin, and then it's covered with the blood of Christ, and we let it sit until Easter. And then kind of the idea is that it was a celebration on Easter morning as he's taken our sin away and risen from the dead. And so, there are still little, so those kinds of things really impact their hearts and their heads, and hopefully ours as well, though, and so we'll see. I'm really looking forward to a lot of this. I love Easter. Easter is my favorite time of the year, and so this is a whole new thing. I'm excited to see what it'll be like.
Yeah. All right. So as we get ready to wrap up, last week we had the Herreras and Obadinas both recommended a book, and Candace and Lana even mentioned, how they had dinner was kind of their thing that they kind of built their day around. That was a rhythm, like a thing that they kind of had that was a steady thing in the middle of all kind of this chaos and change. And so to wrap up, I'd like to ask each of you, do you have, I'm calling it reads, rhythms, and recommendations. So if you've got a good book that was encouraging to you or challenging to you right now, or perhaps there's a rhythm like the dinner thing, or maybe it's the going out for walks, or even just anything else you would recommend to the church as an encouragement or even a challenge, what would you say to the church? And if anybody's ready to go first, Justin, you look like you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready this time. So I immediately thought of two books that I think are really helpful. One is Christian based and one is secular. The Christian based book is Walking with God in Pain and Suffering by Tim Keller. And I've never read a book that used the scripture so well to like get to the heart of why we hate pain and suffering so much, and then also what God might be doing behind it. Even though we never really know, like it's really cool to kind of think about what God might be doing during all this. And then the second one is secular, and Ali made me think about it earlier, talking about the plagues in the Middle Ages. There's one called the American Plague, and it is the story in the 1800s of the yellow fever epidemic in Memphis, and how Memphis was on the right track to be one of the biggest cities. And then the river, which was making us the biggest city, also brought us the yellow fever epidemic. And what's cool about it is, and this is what Ali reminded me of, like it was Christians who said, I'm going to stay in the city. And majority of them contracted the fever and died. Right. And it was also another deal where people were separated based on the skin color and class. And that's similarly what's going on now, even now. I mean, you think about hundreds of years later, we're still struggling with the same issue. So those are my two.
Those are good. Thanks. Aaron, do you have reads, rhythms, recommendations?
No, not sure. My rhythm is still getting up and going to work. One thing that me and Clinton have always done every morning that I've even though we've changed how we do it. So like when Clinton would be on his way to work in the morning when he was driving, he would always call me and we'd pray together over the phone as I was going to work, as we were going to work together. Well, now that he's home all the time and then I'm still leaving for work, we still we'll still take time to pray with each other before I leave. And that's just been really something nice that I've liked to do every day. So it's a little different since we're at home now, but yeah, that's something, just continue to pray together. I mean, I think that's very important for families to do. And that's something I really liked that we've kept up with, even though it's kind of our entire pattern is out of whack now.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. If you're on the other side of the YouTube screen, if you have suggestions, if you'd post it in the chat as well, we would love to see what you guys are doing, or if you have any things that are encouraging or challenging to you as well. So share the good stuff. Ali, what about you? Any books, any routines and rhythms?
Yeah, I mentioned one where, every morning I walk, and it's really helped me. It's hard for me just to sit and pray. And so when I walk, it's just I have such a good communion with God. And so I do that every Sunday morning regardless, but now I do it almost every morning. And during this time, it's made it easier for me to do that. So that's been a big rhythm that's shift. And then some of the family stuff has shift. Doing way more walks, we're reading a book together called Refugee. It's about refugees from different periods of time. And so that's been fun as a family, watching movies. Then I found this book, it's Dynamics of Spiritual Life by Richard Lovelace, and it's about spiritual renewal and revival. And I feel like a lot of what God has been doing in me is a sense of revival and renewal for me spiritually during this time. It's enabled me to stop doing ministry as work, and it's enabled me to just commune with God in a way that has been lacking, to be honest, these last few months. And so I'm reading that book. It's really good. And some of you Justin, you may have heard, Caleb, you may have read this book, but it's been really good. So that book, and then
Good, cool. All right, some of the recommendations coming in before we move over to Caleb for your suggestions. We had the Logo Masters from the Burkhead Kids. If you guys could tell us a little bit about what that's about, that'd be cool. Bryce recommends the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which sounds right on. Oh, Lego Masters. Lego Masters from the Burkhead Kids. Bryce's recommendation, the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. Comer? Yeah, that sounds like it's timely, that title. All right, Caleb, what have you got for us?
Sure. So if you have little kids, and I think we've talked about some of these in the past, but the Gospel Storybook or Gospel Story Bible, one of those, and then the Jesus Storybook Bible. Those are two different books actually, and they just go through. I mean, if Scripture is a bit hard for kids right now, but this points to Jesus in every story. It's really great, and so our kids are very aware of Jesus working. Even when it's a story that doesn't seem to have anything to do with that, and so those are good for kids. I still recommend. I think we started this in the last sermon series before we did all this. Operation World and Prayercast are really great. They're a little bit tone deaf right now because the world is going through this, instead of, but it's still, a lot of it's still very relevant for keeping our minds on the nations. And then more of a grown-up book that's meant a lot to me over the years is a book called The Practice of the Presence of God. It's by Brother Lawrence, and it's about a lot about finding God in the simple things and the day-to-day things. I think it's a really timely thing for right now as we're kind of stuck, especially those who are stuck at home and a lot of it's monotonous. As a worship pastor, I got to recommend singing songs with your family if you're not doing that, or at least listening. If you can't sing, listen. I mean, a lot of us have at least iPhones, if not Alexas. Go to Alexa, and I'm scared she might hear me, but just say, Alexa, play worship music, just pick somebody, and just listen to some of this stuff and start filling your homes with those. I think that's really important. And then taking time to go for walks, I think is really important too. Be out in nature when you can, so.
Caleb,
Absolutely.
Caleb, do you trust Alexa's theology though?
You should always be discerning with everything. Always be discerning.
I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that out. I'm going to say, Alexa, give me something to
Everything
worship.
through the gospel filter. Well, a lot of what you said, Caleb, resonates with me. So before I come around to each of you for your one thing you're grateful for, and if everybody in the chat wants to go ahead and start filling in the things that you're grateful for right now, I second what Caleb said about thinking about that book, Practicing the Presence of God. We all feel connected to God through different means. Like, for a lot of us, like these things will touch us a little bit, but some of us really just feel God's presence through the word. Some of it's through worship, being in nature. And so I've got two recommendations. One would be whatever your thing is, make sure that you're incorporating it in your daily life. So like Caleb said, turning on some worship music, getting outside. My other thing is I was thinking about this afternoon, our city group, we met over Zoom the first time, and it was all the families, and we've got a lot of kids in our group, and it was so good to see everyone's faces, but it was also, loud and chaotic because it's a lot of people. And then the ladies met this past Sunday, and you guys, it was so good to just check in and like have some time for every person to say, how are you doing? That's how we start staff meetings as well. But that would be my encouragement. So either get with your small group in a smaller group if your group is large, and really like schedule it, like do it weekly, be connecting with your people. And if maybe you're not in a city group, whether it's your mentor or close friend, like make that a rhythm of your week, that like same day, same time, commit to checking in with one another. I think it's part of being iron sharpening iron, to where we can encourage one another, but also just for good mental health. And this time where we're not able to see face to face, I just feel like it'd be a really big blessing. So, all right, I'll start with Aaron this time. For your one thing that you're grateful for. Hopefully we're grateful for more things, but for the sake of time, we'll just do one thing.
I'm just grateful. I guess it's going to be weird, but I'm grateful for technology that allows us to do this. I can't imagine going through this like in the 50s or 60s where I didn't have this kind of connection with everyone. That would be almost unbearable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just grateful for this technology that we're able to sit and talk, and even though we can't organically see each other, we're able to, still connect in a certain way.
Ditto. All right, Justin, what's your gratitude?
I'm grateful for my wife because I watched her go through the 4th round of chemo very strongly and then be slapped with the coronavirus scare. And that was a real fear of hers with compromised immune system and me being around so many people every day. But just having her back, I mean, she's cooking and cleaning and out in the yard. She bought a bike, so you may see her on her bike like lately.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Don't blink. She's going to be flying past. So I'm just, really grateful for her. She's been a great example for me.
Awesome. Caleb, what's your one thing?
I also echo with the wife, although that's not my one thing. My wife's incredible. I think God's faithfulness. That's really, he's just proven he's so good, even in spite of all of this. And I know that's a very churchy worship leader thing to say, but we, in the depths of our fears and despair, he's always good, and that's a good thing. And so the fact that he's faithful is something I'm very grateful for.
Absolutely. Ali?
Yeah, so I would say really grateful for my community, my neighborhood, the people who live in my neighborhood. It's been a good experience being. We're present beyond the virus, but it's just this time has been really good, and so I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for a place where we can get to know people, walk, the conversations we've had over this time, and so
Yeah, absolutely. My one thing that I'm focusing on most today, similar to what Caleb was saying about God's faithfulness, is being in a season. You have seasons where you really feel God's presence, or you feel really close to God, and then some seasons where maybe you don't, and you do your Bible study, you're in the Word, and you go through the motions, but you don't necessarily have the emotion to match. And the fact that God is unchanging, that He is still there no matter what we feel towards Him, I'm very thankful for that. All right, friends, let's wrap up this evening with a quick prayer, and then we'll check in. Let me just double check our comments. Aaron seconds Matt's suggestion. Oh, Alex came up with the idea of a prayer chain where each person in the city group is responsible for checking in with one other person regularly, and someone else checks on you. So helpful. Thanks, Heather. So that's an idea for all of you members of city groups out there, city group leaders, if you wanted to add into that. All right, let's go ahead and close with prayer tonight. Holy Father, thank you for Aaron and Justin and Caleb and Ali and everyone who is checking in with us via YouTube. God, I just pray that you would bless this church, and I pray that this church would be a blessing. I pray, God, that kind of like Ali was saying, is a time to fill up. And I pray, God, that you would use this time to fill us up, that we could then overflow into serving others, whatever that looks like. Lord, give us discernment and wisdom about how we are to be your church in this time. Give us hearts that are faithful to you, that love you. And Lord, help us to be good brothers and sisters in Christ, whatever that looks like. In Jesus' holy name, I pray. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining tonight. And we have a Good Friday service coming up, 7 p.m. So also being streamed. Yep. And then Sunday service, Easter. Any other announcements before we clock out?
I just can't think of it.
I think that's enough
buy
for
some
now.
Sweatshirts.
Yeah. Buy some sweatshirts.
So if you wanted to go to the Mosaic website, I'll throw the link in there for you guys for the shopping. And then I'll just throw this in really quickly. We are still going to have Secret Church. We have books for everyone. So if you're interested in doing Secret Church, I believe we're also going to have the books. They are free, but you would go onto the website, to Mosaic's website, and you can reserve a book there, and I'll give you the login information in the book. Through the shop site. They are free, but you would order it through there, and that's how I would know to get it to you. So there will be details about that in future services, and also in the Facebook community group and emails. So, all right. So starting tomorrow, looks like we'll have the books there.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah, so much.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
All right. See you guys.
All right. Good night.